What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. First off, there was no video yesterday because I was in Lincoln watching a basketball game. Had a lot of fun there. So you're going to get two videos today. The first of which being my Week 12 Top 25 playoff ranking reaction comparison. You guys know the drill if you've been on this channel before. But if you haven't, highly suggest you hit that subscribe button. Don't have to, but would mean a lot to me. You can also help support the channel by liking, commenting, sharing the videos, ringing the bell, doing all that sort of stuff, YouTube promotion things. But you're going to get two videos today because there was not a video yesterday. It's my Week 12 Top 25 poll and reaction to the playoff rankings. And then later tonight, you're going to be getting my New Year's Six bowl game and college football playoff predictions. So that'll come later tonight. But as of right now, let's go ahead and jump into my Week 12 Top 25. There was some movement this week. It wasn't anything super drastic like towards the top, although there was for one team, and you see that on screen. I'm pretty sure you know which one that is by now. But we're going to go start from bottom, move our way up to the top as per usual. And again, as per usual, there were a couple teams that dropped out. I dropped Auburn all the way out from 14th, blowing that lead to Mississippi State there. I know Mississippi State is not a bad team. I couldn't keep Auburn in. I had to put another team in over Auburn. You guys know how much I like that Auburn team. They're going to be back in the poll, presumably, maybe. They got some pretty interesting games left on their schedule, including that game against Alabama in Jordan-Hare. So they can absolutely be back. Purdue dropped out and Penn State dropped out as well after both of them lost this past week. But my first five out are Auburn and Mississippi State, the two teams that just played last week. Utah State is one that I think really needs to start looking to get push to get ranked, because that team is playing some really good football right now. App State and then Purdue. You could throw Penn State in there as well. But yeah, that constitutes my first six out, because you could put Penn State on that list there as well really easily. So we're going to go through my rankings first and then the playoff rankings, kind of talk about why I put teams where they are and my reaction to where the playoff committee put teams where they are. So 25 and 24 are new teams in the rankings for me this week. 25, I have Louisiana. Louisiana, the loss to Texas now does not look great, but ever since that loss, they've had some shaky performances. But as of late, they have been playing some really, they've been playing a really good brand of football. They're going to get to play Liberty this week. That's going to be a very interesting game. I'm definitely going to be previewing that game on Thursday, as I'm pretty excited to watch that one. But again, haven't really fully looked at the slate of games this week, but we'll see what games I preview on Thursday. That one definitely is a possibility of being one. They're playing a really good brand of football. I think they deserve to be ranked. Utah also playing some really nice football right now. The loss to BYU does not look as bad as presumably thought, because BYU just looks really good. Utah's had some shaky performances here and there, but as of late, Cam Rising has elevated this program, playing a good brand of football. I did not move NC State, and here's why. When I uploaded my video last week on Top 25, and I looked at NC State being at 23 for me, and I thought maybe I had NC State a little too low. And then they played Wake Forest pretty closely. Probably could have ended up winning that game if a couple more things went right for them. So for me, this week, they do not move. I'm not going to fault them too hard for the loss to Wake Forest, among other performances. They're sitting at 7-3 right now, which is a really, really good record. Considering the schedule NC State has gone through already. That's including win over Clemson. Again, yes, loss to Miami kind of hurts a little bit, but NC State, I'm going to leave where they are for this week. They're at 23-22. Another team that's been in and out of my rankings personally, but that's San Diego State. They just beat a really good Nevada team last week. And as you guys know, I picked Nevada to win the Mountain West. Isn't going to happen now. Probably will be San Diego State. I think they're the best team in the Mountain West. In the Mountain West, a lot of teams are playing some good football, so San Diego State is at 22. And 21 for me is Arkansas. They jump up 4 spots from last week. Arkansas with a very narrow win at LSU. But again, I didn't move them up too much. But again, other teams ahead of them just dropped. So Arkansas jumping up 4 spots. The committee has the same reasoning for me as Arkansas. Jumping up 4 spots there are the Razorbacks. Don't have too many complaints. They finally get Houston in the rankings, so good for the committee, finally giving the American Athletic the love that they deserve, although I think Houston should be rated higher than 24. As you see, you haven't seen them on my poll yet. UTSA, Utah each jump up 1 spot. Arkansas, of course, at 21. And then Mississippi State here at number 25. I know Mississippi State has a lot of good wins this year. Like they have wins over Auburn, Kentucky, Texas A&M. But they also have a lot NC State. They even have a win there. But they have losses to LSU, Memphis, some other shaky losses in there as well. Mississippi State is one of those hard teams to figure out because they have some really good wins and some really bad losses as well. So for Mississippi State, we'll see what happens with this team. Again, they're in my first 5 out. The win against Auburn was a great comeback win. I just don't know if they deserve to be ranked right now. I think if the committee wanted to throw another team in there, they could have thrown in a team like Louisiana right there at number 25. That's the only team the committee and I disagree upon with being ranked. Of course, we disagree where they should be ranked as well. But Mississippi State, I don't fully agree with them being here at number 25. I just think with the record of 6-4, you're saying that Mississippi State is the best 4-loss team in college football, which they might be. But then you also have Penn State. The committee has not given a lot of love to Penn State, other teams in that category as well. So I don't like that. I don't like that decision, but it really doesn't affect anything up to this point. I just think they should put a team like Louisiana in there that has a better record, playing some better football, get some more love. But again, there you go. So moving in now to the top 20. I have Pitt at 20. They jumped up 4 spots from last week. Pitt playing some really good football right now. A great win against North Carolina in their last game. And Pitt has a big one with Virginia this week because that one could end up deciding the division. Yeah, that game against Virginia could end up deciding the division. I've put them at 20. Iowa, I have at 19. Iowa barely getting by yet another team. Although I will say that Minnesota is a better team than people normally are going to, or than people are going to give them credit for this year. I still don't know how the USA Today poll is this high on the Iowa Hawkeyes. They just don't have a lot of offense. Yes, when they put in Alex Padilla, it kind of gave a little bit of life to the offense, but not by much, right? Only 200 yards through the air. And that's not a great stat line. But again, Iowa rides on their defense. It's still playing well. They're at 19. Wisconsin, I feel like now has done enough to jump Iowa for spot number 18 here at moving up 4 spots from last week. Originally, I had Iowa in there at number 18, but I switched them because of the head-to-head. And I feel like Wisconsin is having more of an offensive flow right now than the Iowa Hawkeyes. Great win over Northwestern. Yes, Northwestern struggled, but Wisconsin looked good in that game. I'm going to give them the benefit there. Jump them over a team that they've beaten this year. And Wisconsin now at number 18. Houston, BYU, I did not move. Houston beat a pretty subpar Temple team last week, beaten by 29. You beat who you have to beat. Houston really couldn't move for me, but this is still a good football team. And BYU didn't play last week. And you know my motto, you don't play, you don't move. That's just how I operate. So again, some pretty big movements here on the likes of Wisconsin and Pitt. Let's look at the committee's rankings over here. NC State dropping 4 spots. Again, I don't have a problem with that. Me personally, I just felt like I rated NC State too low last week. So 23, 20. I feel like anywhere from 20 to 25 is a good spot for NC State right now. This is still a good football team playing some good football. 20, I don't have a problem with. San Diego State has jumped up 3 spots into the top 20 to number 19 for the committee. So the committee has been giving more love to the Mountain West than to the American Athletic, which I don't necessarily understand. Like, don't get me wrong. I think the Mountain West is the second best group of 5 conference, especially with the way they've played this year. I don't know. It's really tight between them, the Sun Belt, and the American Athletic there for the best group of 5 conference. But overall, the Mountain West has been playing a good brand of football, but I just don't personally get them not giving enough love to the American Athletic and them giving more love to the Mountain West. Just seems a little off to me, but I totally understand why they are at 19. I don't have a huge problem with it. Pitt and Iowa, like San Diego State, have each moved up 3 spots. So now Pitt is 18, Iowa is 17. Don't have a whole lot of complaints there. Texas A&M has dropped 5 spots after that loss to Ole Miss. Now they are at number 16. And we'll see why I disagree with that in a minute, but Texas A&M is the second highest ranked 3-loss team. Notice I said second. because you haven't seen Wisconsin yet in the playoff committee. So 16 through 20, I thought this was fairly decent here considering what the committee has done. Again, the first rankings for the committee were not that great. I gave them a C minus. I didn't think it was that great. But again, seeing how the committee operates this year, 16 through 20 doesn't feel like that bad, right? So moving on to the top 15, Texas A&M is here for me at 15 because I think that Texas A&M is the best 3-loss team in the nation. We'll get there. But Texas A&M, of course, with the win over Alabama, probably the best win besides Oregon beating Ohio State, you could argue, of the college football season so far. But they do have to drop after the loss to Ole Miss, especially with some of the other performances that we saw around the nation this week. So for Texas A&M, I've dropped them here to 15th. I don't know if many people are going to argue with that, especially seeing that all the other polls have them at 16th, including the playoff poll. But Texas A&M, I think, is the best 3-loss team in the nation. Their path to Atlanta is probably over. Probably now definitely Alabama and Georgia there in the SEC championship game. But I think Texas A&M still capable of playing a really nice brand of football. UTSA, you guys know how much I like this team. Now they take Auburn's place at number 14, albeit they do drop one spot. They struggled a little bit with Southern Miss. That definitely factored into it. I thought about them being behind Texas A&M, but UTSA is still undefeated. And again, to me, to a certain extent, it matters how you play the games, which is why I've dropped UTSA here. But also, a win is a win is a win. And that's why UTSA is here for me in the top 15, probably higher than a lot of other people have. But UTSA, to me, playing some really good football right now. I've said it before, probably have the most underrated quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio in the nation. I can see this team going undefeated. Interesting test coming up against UAB. That'll be an interesting one to watch. But for right now, UTSA is in the top 15. Wake Forest jumping up 2 spots to number 13 for me. Again, I wasn't really sure how this Wake Forest team was going to play against good competition. And I definitely debated on whether or not Wake Forest should be above Oklahoma in this scenario. I decided not to do that just because, Wake Forest has been playing better football as of time, but that defense for Wake Forest has just not been great throughout the entire year. They've had to rely on their offense to do it, but their offense seemingly is one of the best in all of college football. It's been playing really, really well. Good win over a good NC State team, so I jump them up 2 spots here. Dropping 6 spots, though, are the Oklahoma Sooners. So Oklahoma's going to drop 6 spots after that loss to Baylor. And again, Oklahoma right now seemingly is the worst 1-loss team in the nation, because if you want to put them behind Wake Forest, I'm absolutely fine with that. I definitely debated on doing it, but I ended up thinking, okay, so if both these teams were to play, who would win the game? And I ended up deciding Oklahoma would beat Wake Forest if they played today. So Oklahoma dropping here to number 12. I think it's a really reasonable spot for Oklahoma considering how they've been playing as of late. They've just been slunking through games. Look at Kansas. They had to come back against a Texas team that just lost to Kansas, right? But again, Texas is capable of playing some really good football. So for Oklahoma, your chances at the playoff are not done, in my opinion, I don't think. But you've definitely made your road a lot harder. We'll see what the Sooners do this week against Iowa State. And then the next week in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. That's going to be a huge game for a multitude of reasons that I will explain. I will explain at a later date. But Baylor, the team that just beat Oklahoma, has jumped them the head-to-head right here, jumped up 7 spots in my ranking. That's the highest mover this week, up to number 11. The Baylor Bears are playing a really, really high level, really nice brand of football right now. They're going to be here at number 11 again, beating Oklahoma. That is huge. A great job by Baylor in that game. Beat them soundly as well. Never really seemed to be in Oklahoma's control. And Baylor still has a shot to make the Big 12 championship game. Again, I will expand at a later date, probably next week. All right, let's look at the playoff rankings here. So Wisconsin, the committee thinks is the best 3-loss team in the nation, ahead of Texas A&M. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Yes, both offenses have been struggling this year. I know both offenses have had their kinks, have had things to work out. But overall, for me, I just don't see how Wisconsin beats Texas A&M if they play today. Again, they won't play unless, of course, they get into a bowl game together, which I see as unlikely. But I think Texas A&M is the best 3-loss team. The committee seems to think Wisconsin is the best 3-loss team. We'll see how it all pans out, but I think that's an interesting take from the committee. The committee also really likes BYU. They don't move here. They are at number 14. Again, you don't play, you don't move. I'm fine with that. Oklahoma dropping 5 spots to 13. And again, like we just talked about with Oklahoma, they've been kind of slumping through the season, not really playing their best football any week. They have only 2 chances left. That's against Iowa State, Oklahoma State. We'll see if they can pull it together. Ole Miss up 3 spots from the committee's last poll to number 12. I thought Ole Miss would jump into the top 10 of the playoff rankings, especially after the win against Texas A&M. But again, you see the committee doesn't think that Texas A&M is even the best 3-loss team. They have them at 16, which is still a good ranking. But for Ole Miss, I think this is a top 10 team. I think they need to be up there. But again, at number 12, I don't have a huge problem with it right now. And again, Baylor at 11. Again, I have Baylor at 11. You know, I wholeheartedly agree with that pick. And for Baylor, again, their college football playoff hopes are probably out of reach, right? Done. But their Big 12 championship hopes are not. Again, I'll explain that at a later date on why that is. We'll go through certain scenarios next week on what needs to happen for championship games, playoff. We'll go through all that. Make some madness boards. But now we jump into the top 10 here. Here's where I have Ole Miss at number 10. Both polls agree with me here, as they do with Oklahoma State at number 9. The committee even agrees with me that Oklahoma State's at number 9, but both these teams move up 2 spots. Oklahoma State, excuse me, Oklahoma State had a really dominant win over a TCU team that, again, looking for a head coach now, but dominant, like absolutely insane. A great rushing effort from that team in that game. Crazy. And Ole Miss beat a Texas A&M team that I think is the best 3-loss team in America right now. So again, you see where me and the committee kind of differ on things. But Ole Miss, Oklahoma State each jump up 2 spots. And because of Oklahoma's loss, I just shifted everyone up. So now Notre Dame is at 6, Michigan State's at 7, and Michigan is at 8. Let's talk about Michigan and Michigan State, because when you look at the playoff rankings, Michigan is still above Michigan State. By the way, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's look over at the playoff rankings right now. So Wake Forest jumping 2 spots to number 10. The committee feels Wake Forest has been a really good team. They had them in the top 10 from the get-go. I was nervous how they were going to play good competition. The loss to North Carolina isn't a horrible loss. It's a game you probably would have liked to win. The NC State loss probably would have been a little bit of a, quote, better loss. But Wake Forest here at number 10. The committee definitely thinks this is the front runner in the ACC. I think they can get tested by Pitt, absolutely, but we'll have to wait and see. But for them, Wake Forest is 10th. Oklahoma State jumps up 1 spot to number 9, and Notre Dame jumps up 1 spot to number 8 after Oklahoma State's loss. If you remember, the committee had, or not after Oklahoma State's loss, after Oklahoma's loss. And as you know, the committee had them at 8. So let's talk about Michigan and Michigan State. I have Michigan State above Michigan because of the head-to-head. They have very similar resumes right now. Michigan State has a win over a Miami team in Hard Rock that, well, I can't remember if it was in Hard Rock or not, but Michigan State, regardless, still has a win over a Miami team that wasn't playing good football at the time, but is playing good football now. That's still a decent win. And Michigan has a road win against Penn State. Again, Penn State probably could be playing some better football right now, but still a team that I think is worthy of getting in the top 25 if they can win some more games. They have pretty comparable records, but the one thing is the head-to-head. Michigan State beat Michigan. That's why I have them ahead. Now, the committee. I agree with the committee in this way. Michigan is the better team than Michigan State. And I think out of those two, again, those two teams still have Ohio State left on the schedule. They are Ohio State's last 2 games. Out of those 2 teams, I think Michigan is going to give Ohio State a better game. And not just because the game is at home for Michigan and Michigan State has to go play in Columbus, but I think Michigan is the all-around better team. But for me, their resumes right now are very, very similar, and Michigan State has the head-to-head win. So next week, you absolutely could see Michigan State or excuse me, you could absolutely see Michigan jump Michigan State. Absolutely, because Michigan State plays Ohio State, and I don't know how many people are going to be picking Michigan State to win that game. You'll see what I think tomorrow on Thursday. But as for that argument, I agree that Michigan is the more complete team, but I think head-to-head at this point, especially if they played 2 weeks ago, needs to matter. Because the committee, if they're going to have Oregon ahead of, well, here, let's go ahead and jump to that right now. So top 5 did not change in anyone's poll. So we'll kind of brush over things. But again, when you look at my rankings, I have Oregon, Alabama, Ohio State, Cincinnati, and Georgia here at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ohio State had a really dominant win over Purdue. Bama, I couldn't move because they played New Mexico State. Oregon had a pretty solid win at Washington State as well. Again, I personally want to see this Oregon team play the kick butt style of football that they did in Columbus in week 2. And while they've slowly been getting there, I think they need to get there faster. And they have an interesting road test on the road against Utah. Georgia should not lose another game from here on out. They should stay the number 1 team. That's easy. Cincinnati, again, remember what I've talked about with UTSA. I have them at 14th because a win is a win is a win. And yes, it matters how you're playing right now, but UTSA has some good wins this year. Look, they have a win over a Power 5 team in Illinois. Illinois might not make a bowl game this year, yes, but still a really solid win there for UTSA. They've played some good football this year. And for Cincinnati, they have a win over a Notre Dame team that I have ranked number 6. And again, I don't understand why the committee has them at 5 if they have Notre Dame at 8 and Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. And that's probably going to be Notre Dame's only loss this year. I don't necessarily get it. I still don't agree with Bama being at 2. But again, like I've explained in previous weeks, it doesn't matter because if Bama drops a game, whether it be to Arkansas, Auburn, or Georgia, any one of those 3, they're done. They're out. And it's going to simplify the conversation a lot more. But there is still room for a lot of chaos. Again, we have some huge games coming up in the next couple of weeks. Ohio State's got 2 big ones, Michigan State and Michigan. You have Bedlam, Oregon and Utah this week, right? Cincinnati still has to go through their schedule, play undefeated. We can possibly have Georgia and Alabama if things work out right. Georgia's already clinched the East. They don't play another game in the SEC, so they're going to the championship game. But for Alabama, they're pretty much in, but it's not set in stone yet. But we're more likely than not going to see Bama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. And man, is that one going to be fun. Oregon, again, I said they're going to play Utah this week. They could play them twice. They could play them in the Pac-12 championship game as well. And then when you're looking at just these teams here, I've already said Ohio State is Michigan State and Michigan, but they also have to play the winner out of the West, which looks like to be Wisconsin, which could be an interesting game there. But again, outside the top 5, some interesting games. Again, I've already said Bedlam. Some other really interesting games there as well. Wake Forest still has a couple interesting games on the schedule. They have to go on the road to play Clemson this week. That one should be a lot of fun. There are still a lot of games that are going to decide a lot of things in the playoff conversation. Again, 2 weeks to go. 2 weeks to go. Man, this season has flown by, but it's been a lot of fun, hasn't it? We're starting to figure out who we think is going to get into the field. Next week, I'm going to be making a madness board on what were to happen if this team wins and this team wins and this team. It's going to happen. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll do it championship week as well, and we'll see how those videos go. But what that might mean is I'll probably end up pushing my preview prediction videos back to Friday. Not this week. This week, it's still going to come on Thursday. I promise you that. Unless, of course, I don't have time. Can't promise anything. But I will try my best to get it out on Thursday. Again, later today, you're going to see my college football playoff predictions and New Year's 6 bowl game predictions. That's going to do it for me for top 25. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what game you are most excited for coming up in these final 2 weeks. As always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I will see all of you guys later tonight with playoff predictions and New Year's 6 bowl game predictions. Goodbye.